Now we get to the final piece in the adaptive layout jigsaw, and that is what we call adaptive rules. So let me first of all just bring up the app in a browser, and we'll explain the different things that are going on here. The first one is, let's focus on the title here. As we narrow down the browser, you'll see that it stays centered, and then suddenly when it kind of fits, this title is hidden. So let's look at that again. The other thing you'll notice is that the piece of text here in the table widget, which was below the title, it's had its font size changed to a small one. If I expand again, there you can see. So those are two interesting things which we'll look at. And the third is the main point really, which is how do we deal with these three columns? As I narrow down to this point, you can see that these two containers, which were the first two columns, have now been changed from a width of 33% to 50%, so they fill both of them the width. This one here, the image, has had its width set to 100%, so it fills the lowest point. And then as I narrow further, there you can see we've reached the next threshold, and all three have had their width set to 100%, so that's good for your smartphone. So let's take a look and see how we actually built that. So the first thing we'll look at is the way that those columns were managed. Now by default, each one of these cells, these containers, has a size percent width property set to 33, so they're taking up a third each of the column of the whole browser window. Now when the browser is reduced in width, or it's displaying on a narrower device, we can invoke what's called an adaptive rule. So I'm going to start off just by looking at the adaptive layout property. This property is only available for panel containers at the moment, and that's where you need them on the whole anyway. So let's bring up the adaptive layout dialog. What we have here is we've got two adaptive layout rules. One of them is invoked when the browser width falls between 0 and 320 pixels, and the other one between 321 and 750. If it's outside any of these ranges, then the default properties will apply, in this case 33%. However, if it falls within these bands, then we can invoke property changes using a dialog. So here, between 321 and 750, we can see that the percent width is modified. I can click on this, and here we have a list of properties that can be modified. In this case it's only one, which is the percent width property, and you can see that has been modified to be 50%. The other one is if it falls below 321 pixels, and here the percent width is set to 100%. And that applies to all three columns in exactly the same way. Now let's take a look at how we dealt with the title. If you remember, once it fell below a certain threshold, we hid the title. Now we can't operate directly on a text widget, so there aren't adaptive layout rules for text widgets. So what we've done is we've put this text widget inside a container and we run the rule there. So there's its container, and there we see there's one rule set, and if it falls between 0 and 750 pixels, the visible property has been modified and it's been set to false, so that hides it. The final thing that we do is modify the font size here. Again, this is a piece of text, it's inside a container, and there's a container adaptive layout rule if it falls between 0 and 750 pixels. Now in this particular case we've set the visible property. We're not actually using this, it's set to true, so it was set to true before, so it has no effect. However, what we are going to show here is the catch-all situation where you can actually invoke a JavaScript function, and that allows you to do pretty well anything that you want, which maybe just the property modification on its own won't let you do. So let's see how that works. So we set the rule. Now if we go to the application properties, there or here, and we go to its events, you'll see that there is an event here called onAdaptive Layout. And when I click on this bit here, it brings it up, and here you can see that this event is called for all adaptive layout rules that are invoked. The first parameter here allows you to inspect the name of the widget that's actually being invoked. Here it's I'm looking for if it's panel container 1. If I go back, you'll see that that is in fact panel container 1 here. So if the widget in question is panel container 1, then I'm saying if the Windows width is less than 750, and here I'm setting the font property to be 12 pixels. Otherwise, set it to 20 pixels. So that's a fairly crude example, but it illustrates nicely how you can use the adaptive layout event to achieve really sort of detailed control